As of starting this recording, it is 11:53 p.m., and we're going to read some scary unsolved mystery stories, or unsolved murder stories. Um, these are true, so just a warning. Um, all these I find offline. I'm not sure how long the stories are. I don't really know what they're about. I'm just reading them, and we're going to look at them together. So the first one we're looking at, it's the unsolved murder case of the boy in the box. So let's get started. On February 23rd, 1957, a man was checking his muskrat traps in the woods off of Susquehanna Road in Fox Chase, Philadelphia, when he came upon a baby bassinet box with a dead body in it. Knowing that his musket traps were illegal, the man decided against reporting the body. 2 days later, a college student named Frederick Benosis was spying on girls at the Good Shepherd School when he too came upon the body. Benosis was also reluctant to notify the police, but a day later he nonetheless reached out to the authorities. And then it shows a picture of the boy. I'm not going to show it because my camera's not very good, but it shows him just dead, so that's great. The body was that of a young child who had since become known as the boy in the box, as well as American's Unknown Child. The boy was completely naked, and his hands and feet were wrinkled as if he had been submerged into water before he died. Furthermore, his esophagus contained a dark substance, suggesting that he might have vomited shortly before he died, the cause of which appeared to be several blows to the head. Surprisingly, even though the case attracted significant media attention, no one ever came forward to identify the boy. However, progress was made in 2002 when a psychiatrist contacted the authorities with information regarding the case. The psychiatrist claimed that a patient of hers, a woman named Mary, confided that her parents had brought American's Unknown Child to use him as a sex toy. Wow, that's a big change in the story. According to Mary, her mother had been bathing the boy when he suddenly threw up. Angered, Mary's mother beat him to death. Mary claimed that she accompanied her mother to northeast Philadelphia woods, where they wrapped the boy in a blanket, placed him in a box, and left him there. The investigators were convinced that Mary was telling the truth, even if she was mentally unstable. However, when Mary's name leaked to the press, she left the country and no further efforts had been made to investigate the curious case of America's Unknown Child. So that's the end. So, from what I can tell, Mary, who was the daughter of a mother, who the mother was most likely the boy's mom, he threw up while he was being bathed, and then she, I guess, killed him and took him with her daughter to bury him, and that would explain why his hands and feet were wrinkled and why he had like black substance in his throat, which is why he threw up, or why they thought he threw up. So even though that's unsolved, it kind of seems like they kind of knew where they were going. It's not like mystery. Like there's some stories where there's no explanation for what happened. It's just this happened. We literally have nothing to like explain why. But that was a good one. That was scary. Let's move on to the next one. This is called The Black Delilah. I actually have heard of this. It's a more common story, but I'll read it anyway. On January 15th, 1947, the dismembered body of a woman was discovered in a vacant lot of Leimert Park, Los Angeles. So surreal was the scene that the woman who discovered the body, Betty Bersinger, initially thought that she had come upon a severed mannequin. The body was completely drained of blood and had seemingly been washed, and the face had been slashed from mouth to ear. So just to kind of, you probably know, but it's like her mouth was cut all the way up to her ear so that she was smiling. Like he was just completely severed, so they just took like a knife or something, just cut it all the way up her cheek. So if she would have opened her mouth, it would have just opened over here. The upper and lower parts of the body were placed a foot away from each other and were posed. The hands were placed over the head, the elbows bent, and legs spread. The intestines were tucked under the buttocks. Jeez. The authorities were called. The body was identified as Elizabeth Short, later known as the Black Delilah, a 22-year-old aspiring actress who had been dating a married salesman. 6 days after the gruesome discovery, on January 21st, the editor of the Los Angeles Examiner, James Richardson, received an anonymous call. The caller told Richardson to expect souvenirs. On January 24th, a curious envelope was discovered by the U.S. Postal Service worker. The envelope was addressed to the Los Angeles Examiner and other Los Angeles papers. The letter contained short birth certificate, photos, and other personal belongings of the woman. On January 26th, another letter came in. It said, "Here it is, turning in Wednesday, January 29th, 10 a.m. Had my fun at police, Black Delilah Avenger." The note included the location where the killer would supposedly show up. The police waited patiently, but to their dismay, the killer never showed. The same day, another note was sent. "Have changed my mind. You would not give me a square deal. Delilah killing was justified." Over the years, the police have questioned countless suspects and self-confessed Black Delilah's killer. However, to this day, the Black Delilah's murder has not been found and remains one of the most baffling unsolved murder cases in history. So that one is not unsolved. It's just a woman who had been severed and thrown, I believe it was like in front of a random house in a neighborhood. I don't think she lived there either. So it was just a random location. She just got cut in half. And the more weird thing about it wasn't just that, like her body was completely drained. That's why the woman thought that she was a mannequin, because she was white. I actually have seen pictures. Luckily, I didn't show on here, but her body's all white. I'm pretty sure she's skinny because she's totally been drained. Yeah, it's insane. Alright, moving on to the... Oh, wait. Actually, it still goes on. Sorry. On June 23rd, 1965, Houston patrolmen said a standard visit to the house of an elderly couple, Fred and... Wait, is this the same story? Oh, my apologies. This next story is called Unsolved Murder Cases, the Icebox Murders. Alright, on June 23rd, 1965, Houston patrolmen paid a standard visit to the house of an elderly couple, Fred and Edwina Rogers. To their surprise, they found the house empty and were probably on their way out when one of them decided to check the fridge. Oh, God. Charles Bullock, one of the patrolmen present that day, recalled the scene. So this is in quotes. This is what the officer said. "Opened up a refrigerator and see nothing but meat stacked in it. My partner standing next to me made the comment that it looked like somebody had butchered a hog. We didn't know it was the body until we got ready to close the refrigerator and we could see the head down in the bottom of the vegetable bin." And it actually does show pictures. Alright. It actually shows a picture of, in the news, like on the newspapers, a picture of, it says butcher at large. It just shows a picture of the refrigerator. Police investigated and discovered that Fred, 81 years old, and Edwina, 72 years old, had actually been killed a week before they were placed in the refrigerator. Edwina had been brutally beaten and then shot, while Fred had his head crushed. His insides were later flushed down the toilet. Jesus. The killer was never found, but the prime suspect was, and still is, the elderly couple's son, Charles, who was 43 years old at the time. No one could ever find him. He disappeared without a trace. However, recently, two Houstonians, Hugh and Martha Gardenier, have declared that they have cracked the icebox murder case wide open. According to the Gardeniers, Charles, who was a geophysicist, was physically and emotionally abused by his parents from a young age. His parents lived in the house that was owned by Charles and constantly took out loans in his name. Tired of being constantly abused, Charles supposedly killed them. He then fled to Mexico, it is believed, and soon made his way down to South America, where he continues working as a geophysicist. Alright, that's the third story. I think I'm going to read one or two more, depending on how long they are. This next one is called The Mystery of Room 1046. I have actually read this one. This one's creepy. I read it on a different website, though, like a year ago, so I don't know what it is. But let's just see. On January 2nd, 1935, a man checked into room 1046 at the Hotel President in Kansas City. His name, according to the hotel register, was Ronald T. Owen, and his home address was in Los Angeles. He had a cauliflower ear, brown hair, and a horizontal scar on his scalp. He had no luggage except for a hairbrush, a comb, and toothpaste. That same day, Owen checked in at the hotel. A maid stopped by the room 1046. According to her, Owen seemed frightened. The blinds were shut tight, and the room's only source of light came from a small lamp. After the maid was done cleaning the room, Owen asked her to leave the door unlocked because he was expecting a friend. Later, when the maid returned with fresh towels, she saw a note on the dresser that said, "Dawn, I will be back in 15 minutes. Wait." The next morning, the maid returned to room 1046. It was locked from the outside, so she assumed that Owen had gone out. However, to her surprise, Owen was in the room, meaning that someone else had stopped by previously and locked Owen in. Just like the previous night, Owen was sitting in the dark. Then a phone rang. Owen answered and said, "No, Dawn, I don't want to eat. I'm not hungry. I just had breakfast." That same day, a motorist named Robert Lane picked up a man near the hotel president. The man apparently told Lane that he was going to kill someone tomorrow. Later on, Lane identified the stranger he had picked up as Owen. That night, when the maid returned to the room 1046 with fresh towels, she was turned away by a guff-sounding man. The next morning, the hotel staff noticed that the telephone in room 1046 was off the hook. A bellboy was sent up to the room, where he discovered Owen lying in a puddle of blood. It was obvious that Owen had been tortured. When the police asked Owen who did this to him, he answered nobody. His wounds, according to him, were the result of him falling against the bathtub. Mysteriously, his clothes were missing. And then it shows a picture of Owen, and he has like a scar up on his head right here. I've actually seen real pictures of him, actually, but it just shows a police sketch of it. When the police tried to confirm Owen's identity, they found that Roland T. Owen did not exist. Owen, who had by now become John Doe, died in the hospital and was to be buried in Potter's Field. Now, the one thing I didn't get about this when the first time I read it was that he was talking, and he said that he did it to himself, but then he died. So that kind of makes sense. Like, he woke up, said something, and then died, but that just always seemed kind of weird to me. That, like, police were able to question him, and then he just died. But it may have been a brain bleed. I don't know. I just always thought that was kind of strange. When the police tried to I already read that. Died in the hospital and was buried in Potter's Field. However, an anonymous call came asking for the burial to be postponed until funds for proper funeral were wired. 13 flowers were sent to the funeral and were signed "Love Forever, Louise." In 1936, a woman read about the case and thought that Owen looked a lot like her friend's missing son, Artemis Ogletree. Ogletree's mother confirmed that the man from the room 1046 was indeed her son, but the case wasn't able to proceed any further. Police never found the mysterious Dawn, and they could never trace the mysterious woman named Louise, who funded the funeral and sent the flowers. Alright. So, there were a couple other things that they didn't put in there. So, he was staying in the hotel room 1046, and he had checked in there when the person who checked him in, when they looked at him, he looked to be sweaty, I'm pretty sure, and he looked scared, so just kind of the same thing. He was sitting in the dark while he was in the room. He always looked scared. He always looked like he was about to get pounced on. And I believe when they found him, he was in the bathroom, and he was like laying by the tub, and they said that it looked like he fell and hit his head, or at least that's what he said. He said he fell and hit his head on the bathtub. But they obviously figured out that that wasn't true. Louise, who is the woman that sent the flowers and funded the funeral, they never found her. The mom of the boy never, she didn't know who Louise was, and she wasn't able to tell anything. The only thing that was weird was I don't think they talked about the man's voice that they heard. He didn't sound, so when they were talking about his voice, I believe there were two different accounts. There was one account that it sounded like a man, like a man with a deep voice, and there was another one that said that it sounded like a woman, or a woman with like a deep voice, like a deep manly voice. So people always skepticize that it was either a man that beat him to death and tortured him, or it was a woman. Could have been Louise. But I mean, I'm just saying that. So it could have been a woman that did that and then walked out. And there was a woman that did check in at the hotel, but she wasn't suspected at all. But there were a lot of theories on that story. But that one is still unsolved. They don't know who did it. He never told anyone. But he was obviously scared. So I guess for me, what I think is that he was beaten. He was told not to tell anyone, probably because they didn't expect him to die. Because he was alive. He wasn't purposely killed. Like, he wasn't stabbed, he wasn't shot, he was just beaten. So they probably wanted him to survive. And maybe, possibly it was Louise. Louise expected him to survive. And then when he didn't, she sent him flowers and paid for his funeral as a form of sorrow, or a form of, a form of sorrow. But I don't know. I mean, that's really creepy. But anyway, that's the last story that I'm going to be reading. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will be posting probably in the next couple of days. I'm probably going to read some more scary mystery stories. I like them. I may do a creepypasta. I found some good stories on there, but I more enjoy reading the real stories. I feel like they connect with me more. Maybe they connect with other people more because it's true. it actually happened. They haven't been solved, and I'm gonna try and read more. None of the ones today were really supernatural. Like they weren't like spirits or anything, and I like that. So I'm gonna try and do a spirits video. Maybe I'll just find a creepypasta about spirits and then do a true story. I don't know, but I guess we'll see. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will be posting in a couple of days. Thank you, and goodbye.